Sunday afternoon, November 29th, 1970. A father is out hiking with his two young daughters through Isdalen, a quiet, wooded valley just outside the city of Bergen, Norway. Locals had long nicknamed this place Death Valley, after a string of earlier accidents and suicides there over the years. As the family walks the trail, one of the girls wanders slightly off the path, drawn by a strange, sharp smell hanging in the cold air. She follows it between the rocks, and what she finds there makes her scream, a blackened, charred hand reaching out from a body so badly disfigured that at first glance, no one can even tell it's human. That woman would never be identified. Not that week. Not that year. Not after more than 5 decades of investigation, international media attention, and a trail of false names that all led absolutely nowhere. She would come to be known simply as the Isdal Woman, named after the very valley where she was found. When police reached the scene, what they saw was deeply unsettling. The body, a woman roughly between 25 and 40 years old, about 5'4", with delicate, round features and long, dark brown hair, was burned almost beyond recognition, her face distorted as though one feature had melted directly into the next. Scattered around her were several objects: broken glass bottles that likely once held some kind of accelerant, a pair of rubber boots, a burned fur hat, and a partially melted plastic water container. The ground and rocks nearby were scorched black, showing that whatever fire had consumed her had been fierce, and by all appearances, deliberately set. But one detail immediately stood out to investigators. Above all the rest, every single clothing label on her body had been carefully cut out. Not burned away by accident, removed on purpose by someone who wanted to make absolutely certain that if this body was ever found, it could never be traced back to a name, a country, or even a store where the clothes were bought. Police released a reconstructed image of her face to the public, hoping that someone in Norway would come forward and recognize her. For weeks, nobody did. Then investigators caught their first real break in the case: 2 suitcases, sitting untouched in a locker at the Bergen train station, that belonged to her. Inside those suitcases was practically an entire hidden life. There was more clothing, again with every label meticulously removed. There was cash in several different foreign currencies. There were wigs and cosmetics that appeared designed to help her alter her appearance from one place to the next. There was a notebook filled with handwriting that looked like some kind of personal code, strings of letters and numbers that investigators, even decades later, have never been able to fully decipher. And piece by piece, hotel records revealed that this woman had spent much of that year, first in the spring of 1970, and then again from late October, right up until the day she died, moving quietly through Norway, checking into hotel after hotel under at least 8 different aliases names, like Fenella Lork, Claudia Tielt, Vera Jarl, Genevieve Lancier, and Elizabeth Leenhaufer, each one apparently backed by its own set of forged paperwork. Even though no actual passport was ever recovered near her body, only a badly burned scrap of plastic that may once have been a passport cover. Hotel staff who remembered her described a quiet, serious, fashionably dressed woman who spoke poor English, along with some German and Flemish. One waitress recalled seeing her dine on more than one occasion with 2 men from the German Navy, including an officer. Bit by bit, a picture was forming of a woman who moved through the country almost like a ghost, never staying anywhere for long, never repeating the same name twice, always careful, always calculated, clearly working very hard to leave behind as little of herself as possible in any single place. Investigators also noticed something on her hands that deepened the mystery even further. Her fingertips appeared to have been deliberately sanded down or altered, as if someone had gone to the trouble of erasing her fingerprints long before the day she died. Not in the fire, but earlier, and on purpose. That single detail changed everything about how the case was viewed. This wasn't the profile of an ordinary traveler who happened to die under tragic circumstances. This was the profile of someone who had spent months, maybe longer, constructing and carefully maintaining an entirely false identity, one layer at a time. So who was she really? And why would anyone go to such extraordinary lengths just to erase every trace of who they truly were? The theory that has followed this case for more than 50 years and simply refuses to go away is espionage. Norway in 1970 sat right at the edge of Cold War tension. A NATO member bordering the Soviet Union, home to sensitive military installations that intelligence services on both sides of the Iron Curtain were known to watch closely. A woman traveling under multiple false identities, carrying coded handwritten notes, seen dining with naval officers, and moving methodically between hotels near military-sensitive areas fits uncomfortably well with the profile of an intelligence operative. Some investigators believed she may have been conducting surveillance close to defense installations along the Norwegian coast. Others have suggested she was caught in the middle between two rival intelligence services, and that her death wasn't a suicide at all, but something carefully staged to look exactly like one. Norwegian police, however, officially reached a very different conclusion. At a press conference on December 21, 1970, they announced that the woman had most likely died by suicide, that she had doused herself in fuel and set the fire herself, alone, in that remote valley. But this explanation never sat comfortably with everyone who worked the case. Years later, several of the original investigating officers privately admitted that they had never fully believed the suicide theory, even at the time it was announced. The positioning of her body, the deliberate arrangement of items around her, and the sheer effort she'd clearly invested in hiding her identity all seemed strangely inconsistent with someone simply choosing to end their own life alone, in isolation, far from anyone who might witness it. With no identification ever confirmed, and no family ever coming forward to claim her, the Isdal Woman was eventually buried in February 1971 in an unmarked grave at Millendal Cemetery in Bergen. Because several of her hotel check-ins had used the names of Catholic saints, she was given a Catholic burial. Her funeral was attended only by the handful of police officers who had spent months trying, and ultimately failing, to discover who she really was. She was placed inside a zinc-lined coffin, a deliberate choice made specifically in case investigators ever needed to exhume and re-examine her remains at some point far in the future. And decades later, they did exactly that. In 2016 and 2017, Norwegian broadcaster NRK, working together with the BBC, launched a fresh forensic ray investigation into the case, applying techniques and technology that simply hadn't existed back in 1970. Isotope analysis of her teeth suggested that she had likely grown up somewhere near the border region between Germany and France, and that she had spent time living in several different parts of Europe throughout her life. A pattern consistent with someone who moved frequently, whether for ordinary work or for something far more secretive. Even with this new scientific information in hand, her actual name has still never been confirmed by anyone. More recently, independent researchers digging through declassified archival material have proposed newer, still unproven leads connecting her final months in Norway to controversial European financial and political figures who were active during that same turbulent period, though these particular theories remain disputed and far from confirmed. More than 50 years after two little girls stumbled onto her body in a quiet Norwegian valley, the Isdal Woman remains exactly what she seemed so determined to be, even in life untraceable. No confirmed name. No confirmed nationality. No definitive answer as to whether she chose to die that day or whether someone else made that choice for her instead. She lived under at least 8 different names, and in the end, she died under none of them. And somewhere, in an unmarked grave in Bergen, she is still waiting for someone, anyone, to finally say who she really was. If this case fascinated you as much as it still fascinates true crime researchers and amateur detectives around the world even today, hit that like button. Tell me your theory in the comments below. Share this with someone who loves a real unsolved mystery. And subscribe for more stories just like this one.